Hey you guys, welcome back to the channel. My name is Steven, accompanied by Queen Taylor, and today we're doing a video specifically for Steve. This video has been recommended to us from our first video back, actually. I think it goes all the way back to the American Compared video when we were just kind of starting back into YouTube after taking a 7-month hiatus. No one seems to care about that hiatus, but I do. And as we're kind of diving into more European and UK stuff, people were like, hey, you should check out this video, Steven, because you think that Europe is its own country.
These people know who I am.
And everything in Europe is its own thing. And I'm like, you're right. I did think that way for a long time. I kind of grouped you all into one little thing and kept you there. And now I'm learning you're much bigger than what my brain comprehended at the time. Now you got little islands.
It's important to learn and grow.
Yeah. So you guys, explaining Europe to Americans is probably something I should have watched 2 months ago. But here we are. We're dusting off the old requests to keep you guys happy. And this is that time. This is the time because we're actually going to be traveling over to the UK. And I don't want to say something stupid. I probably will still, but I've already incorporated tea into a daily ritual. We're becoming more British than I care to admit. Yeah, that's it. You guys, let's hop on over the video. You see it in our videos. You know what I'm talking about, but I digress.
Europe, the land of weird European movies, the metric system, the relaxed laws of underage drinking, and the starter of both world wars. Lately I've been seeing a lot of information about Europe, and it's been a bit misguided. So here I present to you a little crash course about this part of the world. So let's start off with geography. Unfortunately, or fortunately, Europe does not look like this. It looks like this. Europe has over 40 countries, so it's much more than just France, Germany, and Italy. And saying you visited Europe is a very broad term because this part of Europe is very different from this part of Europe.
Okay, so you visited Europe. Explain what you just meant right there.
What do you mean?
Because she's like, visiting Europe is very different from, so did you hit?
Yeah, because I hit Western Europe. So Spain, France, Germany, Netherlands, all that sort of stuff is very different than visiting Ukraine, Belarus, Croatia, like everything more on kind of the east side.
No kidding.
Yeah.
See, I always thought that was the Middle East. With Iraq, I thought that was its own thing. I didn't know it was a part of Europe. Because when we talk about like Iraq, Iran, all that, we just say, it's the Middle East. So I'm like, is that its own?
I mean, Iraq and Iran are not in Europe.
Yeah, they're in the Middle East. See what I mean? Do you see how that gets like...
There are certain countries that I think are...
What continental plane are those bastards in? Asia? Russia? Like what are we doing here?
Yeah. I think on that side of the world it gets a little trickier.
Yeah. Okay. So when you tell people you went on,
I usually say Western Europe. If I actually talk about it, I say Western Europe.
Okay. Fair.
The biggest country in Europe is Russia, and the smallest country in Europe is the Vatican City, which is basically a giant building with a giant park. Europe can be divided depending on how you look at it. It can be divided politically, geographically, or historically. For example, here, the east from the west, and here, the red from the green from the turquoise, or potato-tomato regions. So let's look at the general way of how Europe can be divided. Firstly, on the list is, of course, Western Europe. These are the countries that people want to move in, live in, and be born in. They are economically better off and they have a lot of work opportunities. These countries include Germany, France, Austria, Belgium, and if you don't count the British Islands as their separate thing, then they also are in the west of Europe. Next up we have
Yeah, so that's another thing. I have seen comments of people saying the British Isles is not a part of Europe.
Yeah, I don't understand that comment because it's not, they're not part of the European Union anymore, but they're still a part of Europe. I mean, to my knowledge,
Like,
I don't understand why they wouldn't be. They're part of the European continent. So that
yeah, so that's
I don't know. Every time somebody comments that, I'm like, what are you talking about?
yeah, I kind of I had it out with them and I was like, dude, I'm looking at the globe right now. I see this little European continental plane thing going up north south on my freaking globe. And yeah, you're like right there, bud. Like you are, if I were to like look at this, it's northwest in the sphere, my guys. So I don't get that at all. And I'm just gonna keep you into the Western Europe atmosphere because I don't know.
Communities. These countries include Germany, France, Austria, Belgium, and if you don't count the British Islands as their separate thing, then they also are in the west of Europe. Next up we have Northern Europe. A lot of these countries are doing great, or even they're better off in terms of quality of life. Except for Sweden, it's having a rough patch with crimes, apparently. But they're pretty cold, and in the winter it gets really dark, so not a lot of people want to move there necessarily. Not only are they cold when it comes to weather, but also when it comes to their friendliness scale. They're usually considered a bit more unfriendly or reserved. These countries are also referred to as Nordic or Scandinavian countries. They have a lot of Viking heritage
Finland
and
is
they
not
like to fish.
Scandinavian.
They have a lot of fish and water.
So I will say this, the whole Scandinavian thing kind of confuses me. So Norway, Sweden, Finland.
Yes.
I thought all three of them were Scandinavian, and Denmark. So which one did they just say isn't Sweden? I don't remember. But I thought these as a whole, I thought like these four were Scandinavian.
You want me to back it up 5?
Sure. Finland. Okay.
Finland.
So that's the one on the far right.
Okay.
A lot of Viking heritage and they like to fish. They have a lot of fish and water around them. Moving on to Southern Europe. These are the countries that people like to visit on vacation. They're warm, maybe too warm for some people, and by some people I mean me. They have great food and wine, they're pretty friendly, and some of them like to take naps in the middle of the day, which sounds like a dream. But their economy is not doing that great. And if you're wondering why is this section a darker orange, well, I'll get to that in a bit. And now we have Eastern Europe. Well, the problem with Eastern Europe is that nobody wants to be called Eastern Europe. This division is based on the time when the Fire Nation attacked, so a lot of these countries were occupied. Since East of Europe is not the best area to be associated with, countries like to identify themselves with other names. For example, Romania, Croatia likes to be called the Balkans. Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania are the Baltics, but to be honest, they're quite high up.
Okay, pause. I want to hear that again. I've heard about Balkans. I don't know if it was in bottom, maybe, but
Yeah.
I didn't know what that was.
Croatia likes to be called the Balkans. Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania are the Baltics, but to be honest, they're quite high up geographically, so maybe they could be considered even Northern Europe. Poland, Czech Republic, and Slovakia likes to be called the Central Europe. And now we're left with countries that are not doing that great, for multiple reasons. And I would say maybe they would rather be called Slavic countries rather than Eastern Europe. You can be both, but one of them sounds a bit more cool than the other one. So if you agree with the concept of Central Europe, then scratch whatever I said before about Europe looking like this. Now Europe looks like this. And I have to say I have nothing against being called Central Europe or the existence of Central.
Do you know these countries? What is that country?
That's Russia.
That's Russia?
Mm-hmm.
That's that close, eh?
Mm-hmm. That's Belarus, I think.
Belarus?
Yeah.
Hmm.
It's hard seeing it in colors blotched up like that, but that's Ukraine.
This is Ukraine right here. So this is literally backyard, dudes. Backyard. Control that thing up there. Man. All right.
Europe. I think it's just funny how nobody wants to be called Eastern European. So then lastly, we have Central Europe.
There's a bad
Basically
connotation.
all the German-speaking countries and more. These countries are located in the core economic region of Europe. They have stable governments and a relatively high quality of life. And these countries also love beer, and they like to fight on who drinks the most beer. This is an interesting correlation I found. Not that it's related to geography, but it's an interesting fact. With all that said, the number one thing you should remember is that Europe is not a country. It is a continent that has a lot of countries. And if you know where the capital of Paris, Berlin, and London is, you're doing a good job, and you should pat yourself on the shoulder. And I definitely don't expect you to know where Malta is, which is right here, and it's very small. I don't even
Did you know
expect
where
people
Malta
from
was?
France
I
to
did.
know the
Why? That's interesting.
capital of Latvia. So if you know a little bit about this place, it's already pretty good. I think one of the most important things is just not to make assumptions. For example, calling Lithuania basically Russia is very disrespectful. Or Ireland is the same as UK. Not a good thing to do. So maybe open a map before opening your mouth. Just a friendly suggestion. And also maybe it's helpful to know the difference
Stuck
between
name.
Europe and
I know
European
she's talking to
Union,
me.
which I'll cover that in a bit. And now we can
Okay,
move on
good.
to history. Well, Europeans have a lot of beef with each other. UK and Ireland, Romania and Hungary, Portugal and Spain, and Russia with basically everybody in the world. And it's all because of history. Europe has a lot of it. There were a lot of agreements, disagreements, and wars over land in the past and also now. Some stuff is serious and some stuff ended up countries just making fun of each other. For example, Austria making fun of Germany, France and the Netherlands making fun of Belgium, or the whole Scandinavian area making fun of the Danes because of their weird sounding language. Because of history, we have cities like this that were weirdly divided between Netherlands and Belgium. They even have houses that are divided into two, so pretty strange. And we also have a city like this in the Baltics between Estonia and Latvia. Then when you compare Europe to the US, you can see that America is actually bigger in size than Europe, much bigger. Europe is 2/3 of America. But the main difference between these two is that one of them is much more densely populated than the other. The US has 300 million people living in there, and Europe has 700 million. And yet they're smaller in size. Each country here has their own rules, their own languages, their own culture, and
So I think that right there, when we're talking about the population, and with the American compared video, was because I made a reference to the fact that the United States was bigger, and so the kind of notion that was taking and the kind of context that it was taking was about the population sizes. And I was like, no, man, it's literally fucking bigger. Like, it is vast, meaning you can be in the same state and drive 10 hours and still be in the same state.
Yeah.
And in that context, I was talking about Colorado specifically, where we were driving, it was to Nebraska, and it took like half the day to drive, where here you could drive 2 hours and be in like two different countries. Because again, the densely populated areas like she's talking about, it's crazy to like, and you're talking about a continent where like the state of Florida has more population than a country in Europe does, and that kind of blows my mind too, because when it's convenient for a country in Europe to compare itself to America, they kind of call it Europe. They get into that bubble and say, well, Europe, this, but I live in the UK. It's like, brother, get out of that bubble you're putting yourself into with Europe,
But I think that's the same as like vice versa, is saying versus the United States. If they were to compare it to a state is one thing, but if they were to compare it to the like we couldn't say the United States versus wherever.
Yeah, but
the United States is the country.
But the videos we were watching was comparing the whole of America. You know, they weren't calling out just Florida. You know, Floridians do this.
That's what I'm saying. So if they're comparing the entire country, then Europe can compare the entire country as well.
Yeah.
But they weren't.
I don't necessarily think, I don't think that America Compared video was, you know, because they were taking pieces from like Denmark, you know, and Sweden. It's like, that's real convenient. You know, comparing America to those two countries like that. But I digress. Let's continue on with the history. I'll back it up a little bit so we can really digest. What's the matter?
Nothing.
And we also have a city like this in the Baltics, between Estonia and Latvia. Then when you compare Europe to the US, you can see that America is actually bigger in size than Europe, much bigger. Europe is 2/3 of America. But the main difference between these two is that one of them is much more densely populated than the other. The US has 300 million people living in there, and Europe has 700 million. And yet they're smaller in size. Each country here has their own rules, their own languages, their own culture, and so a more accurate comparison would be something like this. Every country is their own little America. And what I mean by that, we can take a look at Germany, for example. The country is divided into 16 states, and this Germany is very different. They also sound very different. When they talk to each other, they might not even understand each other. Plus, we also have Austria right here that also speaks German, but their German is very different from the standard German. But they are right next to each other, so how did this happen? History and culture and a lot of the stuff in between. Then we can also look at UK, which is fully separated from Europe by water. Here the country is divided into 4 regions, which is Scotland, Wales, England and Northern Ireland. But if you look deeper under the surface, it's also divided into smaller regions. And if you try harder, you can also divide it into just towns, cities and villages. The UK is an interesting example of how the language and the culture developed a little bit differently, even though they're right next to each other and the country is quite small. Here, people can recognize your status or class based on where you grew up in, which is a thing, I suppose. Now, let's talk about the economical state of Europe. Firstly,
Okay, hold on, because she said the UK is separated from Europe by water. So is the UK not part of Europe? We're back to that thing. It doesn't make sense to me.
Let's cover what is the EU, or European Union, as they say. It is an international organization comprising of 27 countries that govern common social, economic and security policies. EU is in Europe, but the whole Europe is not in the EU. Just like a square is a rectangle, but a rectangle is not a square. What I mean is that not all European countries are a part of this. Some do want to join and some want to leave, for a variety of reasons. From my understanding, this is the EU flag, not the Europe flag, but we do use it as a Europe flag to represent the unity of Europe, which is a little bit confusing, but there's not much I can do. The nice part about the EU is that a lot of European countries share the same currency, which is the euro currency. Not all of them use euros, but many do. These countries like to stick to their currencies. So if you try and buy some...
Have you been anywhere that didn't take the euro or was different?
Yeah, so I used the euro, the pound, and the Swiss franc.
That's crazy. But they're interchangeable, right? Like you can go with the Swiss franc and use it anywhere in Europe?
No. I mean, I don't know if there's places that could exchange it. Nowhere else that I went. I mean, I didn't even try. Okay. If I was somewhere that they took, say, the euro, I would use a euro. I wouldn't try to use the Swiss franc.
That's interesting.
Because that's like, you know, going to Mexico and trying to use like US dollars instead of pesos. Yeah. So, I mean, there might be places that can, like, exchange it, but
yeah,
I don't think it's like widely done. No.
So my family just went to Jamaica, and they bought me this Toblerones. I don't know if you guys have ever seen I've never seen Toblerones packaged like this. It was kind of crazy. Well, the reason why I say that is because in Jamaica, there's areas where they did take American dollars.
Mm. Yeah, I mean,
No
maybe
big
some
deal.
touristy areas. I'm sure there's places that do, but I think like as a general, no. Why would a country have their own form of currency if they were just going to take everybody else's?
I don't know.
I don't think widespread, no.
Money's money, though, right? Because they can exchange it at the banks.
Yeah, but that's time off of them.
That's true. I don't know how it works. with those.
I have some baggies left over of all three of those kinds of currency. So we're a head start for our trip.
Groceries with your American dollars, you will most likely be rejected. Unless you're in an airport or some kind of tourist hotspot, then it will not go that well. I mean, would you sell me a sandwich if I say I have 200,000 Animal Crossing bells? Probably not. And if you said yes, I'm not sure about your business practices. 20 EU countries use euros, but in total it's 27 because some countries decided to make it their currency unofficially. But not all EU countries switched to euro, and some of them still stayed with their old currency. So if you're traveling to those countries, check ahead what kind of money do they use. And ignore UK because I forgot they decided to leave or they already left. So they're just doing their own thing. But many countries over the years did switch to using euros, which is very convenient when you travel. But as a Latvian, I remember having lats and being very sad that we're gonna switch to euros now. The only reason I didn't want it to happen because I really liked this coin and, you know, nostalgia reasons and cultural reasons. But now I don't have to exchange my currency or try and always calculate in my mind how much is this in lats or how much is this in euros. So, overall, a good thing, I think. You can let me know if you have an opinion about this. Now, the last thing on our list is culture. America is not Europe, and Europe is not America. We run things differently around here. Like, for example, it's very rare to find a building that has central AC. Most of us just have a big heat wave in the middle of the summer and we suffer for 2 weeks and then it's all good. But the normal AC is a bit more common in Southern Europe, but not everywhere. In some ways, we're not that different from you. And maybe we're not even better than you, but we certainly think we are. I mean, we also have McDonald's, and we do like our convenient cars, but we're not that obsessed with it. And our cities don't look like the medieval times. I mean, some do, but we certainly stopped throwing trash out of the windows and burning witches. As mentioned before, Europe has a lot of countries. So
I feel like that burning witches thing was a little Salem reference there, but I digress. I actually, the more I learned about the culture, there's more that I feel like are similar to people in Europe and European countries than Americans. There's more, I think, that are vastly similar in how prideful someone is about their country, how, like, the things that because I think a lot of Americans think that Europe and Europeans are hailing from third world countries.
Really?
I think a lot of Americans think that. They don't see the the picture on the right here of a developed, more worldly.
Yeah, but if I were to go to Europe, this on the left is much like this is where I want to go.
Yeah, I get
over
it.
this.
I get it. But I'm just saying, like, the average American perspective is probably like you have London with a bunch of third world countries attached to it, right? If you were talking about. And so learning about you guys and learning and, developing relationships with people that live in the UK or Irish, in Ireland, we're kind of peeling back that onion and seeing like, wow, we're not so different. Things are like basically the same. So it's just an interesting perspective. I will say about the AC thing, though, I'm jealous that you guys have a heat wave for 2 weeks because we have a heat wave for like 6 months.
Yeah.
Especially hailing from Florida. 6 months, it's like it's 90 degrees the entire time.
Yeah,
and
you don't just suffer through it. You get AC. You do it.
You
sell a kidney on the black market to get that AC if you need to.
It is. And sometimes the AC is not even enough,
you
guys.
So there's a lot of different cultures, foods, traditions, and preferences. And so I gathered some cultural things to generally know about Europe. The first thing on my list is that you're probably not Italian. If the only thing that makes you Italian is that you took an ancestry test that told you that your blood is 57% Italian, you're probably not Italian. It doesn't count if you have Italian ancestors from the 1800s that settled to America. If you didn't grow up in Italy, you don't have any Italian relatives like grandparents, parents, or aunts and uncles, and you don't know how to speak Italian, I'm sorry to say this, but you're not Italian. Being able to pronounce mozzarella correctly or having a family recipe of spaghetti and meatballs doesn't give you an Italian passport. Plus, spaghetti and meatballs is an Italian-American dish. They don't really eat that in Italy. Don't get me wrong, it's a nice fact and it's fun to know where your ancestors came from, but it doesn't mean that you have the right to claim to be this nationality.
So your grandparents are straight up from Italy.
Yeah, they're from Naples.
But you all the time are like, I'm Italian.
I'm
and
Italiano.
I'm like, you're not.
Yeah, I'm not Italian.
You're so not.
I'm not. They were Italian.
Yeah.
My grandfather's name was Nunziato. Who the fuck names their child Nunziato?
Italians.
And they even said it like in a Italian ass way. Like the way I'm pronouncing it isn't even like, you know, when his family, like there's an Americanized version that he's got. And my last name, which I won't say it on the internet, has an American way of saying it and an Italian as fuck way to say it. And but I don't claim to be.
No, not like seriously.
Not like seriously.
Just
seriously,
jokingly.
I'm not Italian.
Yeah.
I'm an American all through and through for sure.
Then a lot of people here are bilingual, but that does not mean that they know English. Oftentimes in most schools you learn 3 languages. Your language, the neighboring country's language, and most likely English or whatever else you want to learn. But that does not mean everybody speaks English or want to speak English. So it's always nice to learn a little bit before you come here. Even just knowing how to say please and thank you is already something. Then thirdly, in Eastern Europe and in Northern Europe, people don't really like small talking with strangers. Plus, walking and smiling alone is considered weird. They probably will think you're crazy. People here are reserved and cold because it probably is cold most of the time, and they don't like to waste their energy on things that don't really matter. So if you see them smiling, it's most likely sincere. Then next we have Sundays. Some countries consider Sunday as a holy day, so a lot of shops and grocery stores are closed. Or they might not be open at their usual schedule. Germany and Poland are quite serious about it, so you'll just have to deal with it. Food is also a big part of our culture, so here is a subsection about food and restaurants. Well, first of all, let's talk about additives. The EU is cautious of what we put in our food. As you can see, the fries from McDonald's, here is a list of ingredients in the UK, which I think by that time was part of the EU. And here is a list of ingredients that they use in the US. Way more things that I don't know what they are. Don't get me wrong, we have many ingredients that start with the letter E and end with a number, but we are very selective of which ones we want to bring into our club. What I've learned from food theory is that EU takes the approach of guilty until proven innocent. Meaning if the additives are proven to not be harmful, then they're accepted into our food chain. Each country has their own specialties and traditional foods, so there's lots to experience and to try. So we'll probably find a little...
That's one of the best things about traveling too, is getting to taste food from different countries.
Yeah.
A bit weird if you stick to McDonald's and Starbucks and Dunkin' that you can find back at home a 10-minute drive away from your house. But I do have to say, if you're going to these places to find something new, something that is not sold in your country, then I think it's fine. I've done it. For some reason people are judging me for this, but I want to know what a macaron tastes like at a French McDonald's. I'm curious, is it good? Is it bad? Should I buy it again? Speaking of restaurants, prepare yourself that the service will be just okay. They will not go above and beyond to please your every need. They might not be fast and they might not be friendly. They are humans that have emotions and down days and are not full of energy all the time. And they will leave you alone to eat your food and might not check up on you at all. I've been to plenty of cafes and restaurants where they did have very friendly and good service, but not all of them will be like this. And so just be mentally prepared that they will not take your dish back and give you a refund if you just don't like it.
What was your experience with European
You know,
restaurants?
we didn't really eat out that much, to be honest. We did a lot of just shopping at local markets and farmers markets and stuff, and just buying food and making a lot of things. So it's really hard to compare. The only few like handful of times that I can think about that we did go out to eat, I mean, nobody was rude. They definitely don't pay as much attention to you as they do here. You know, here it's like they drop the food off. They usually, you know, at the last place that I worked at, it's a rule. Within the first 2 minutes of somebody having their food, you need to go check on them to make sure everything's okay.
Yeah.
And then you do a check by when they're like halfway through, and then you pick up their food when they're done. You know, you ask if they want dessert, all that kind of stuff. So you're checking on them multiple times. I definitely didn't get that experience, but it wasn't anything unpleasant.
Yeah.
Nobody was rude or anything like that. I would say when we ate at the Irish pub, the bartender, I forget what they call them there, the landlord was like super, super, super pleasant. You know, we sat at the bar and he just chatted with us the entire time, which was probably the most interaction we'd gotten for sure. But I would say maybe 5 times total did we actually eat out at a restaurant.
Oh, very interesting.
Yeah.
Because I feel as though we'll probably be, when we go back, when we get my first time over in Europe, and when you go back, I think we'll probably be frequenting a lot more restaurants with our friends. And I almost, if I'm on vacation, I think I'd prefer the latter. I think I'd prefer being left alone and really just like taking, you know, not being interrupted when I'm eating.
Yeah.
And just, you know, in and out, just give me what I want. And when I'm done, I'm done. You know?
It's definitely an adjustment coming from an American, because I hate when I go out to eat if there's an issue or if I need something and they never come check on me a single time until they bring me my bill. You know, it's like, oh, I wanted my steak medium rare and this is well done. Or, oh, I asked for a side of ranch and I didn't get it. Or my water's been empty for 20 minutes. If it's something like that, just check on me one time to make sure I have what I need, and then I'm good.
It sounds like that's not the way they operate. They're like, what you get is what you get, and then you just eat it. And I'm almost curious.
That was just an example, though.
Yeah. Would you find it rude if you got up and got the waiter?
Probably. They probably would. Yeah, I don't know.
Would they think it's rude?
I mean, I feel like there's a way to do it that's less rude. You know, maybe you just make that eye contact that lets them know that you need something. Because I try to do that. If I need something and a waiter's not been by, I just kind of make that eye contact. And I'm like, when, you know, once they kind of give you that look like, do you need something from me type thing? So I don't know. I mean, my biggest thing is I hate when I go out to eat. I can't eat food without having a drink. And we've gone out so many times and my water's gone, or I'd like another beer, and they never come around. And I'm like, I need a beverage very badly. So.
I mean, you've seen me. I've been pounding this water.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, let's go.
You'll just have to pick something better next time. Then also we have tipping. In most countries, waiters receive a fair minimum wage. But it's still minimum wage, so it's quite low. So we do like tipping, but just 5 to 10%. A more modest tip. Or you just round off the bill that the number looks nice. But the tipping etiquette can be different for each country. For example, in Germany, you tip when you pay. But in France, you leave a tip on the table when you leave and already paid. What I hear a lot of people from America living or visiting Europe say that we don't have good Mexican food. And it's true, because Mexico is right here, right next to the United States. And Mexico is pretty far away from Europe. So not a lot of people that know how to cook good Mexican food come to Europe to open Mexican restaurants. And that makes sense because we have a whole ocean between us. Don't get me wrong, I would love to go to a Mexican restaurant, but I don't even know how good Mexican food tastes like because I've never been to Mexico.
You can't compare it.
Because again, it's pretty far away. So maybe you should implement geography classes into your school education. Just saying. When visiting restaurants, cafes, and other public places, it is important for us to be spatially aware and not be too loud. Americans have a reputation here in Europe that they're loud and annoying. Maybe they're not necessarily American, they might be Canadian, but just be aware of the situation, if it's quiet or not, and how loud you're speaking. especially in countries like Germany. They take it really seriously and they will point it out that you're being too loud. Now, all that being said, Europe is not a perfect place. We have a lot of issues of our own. Europe is considered to be pretty safe from the rest of the world, but we still have crimes here. And as I said before, Sweden, I'm looking at you. What's happening? Especially in big cities, we have a lot of scams and pickpocketers.
That's crazy.
And Paris would be the first city that comes to mind that has this issue.
Yeah.
Then
Yeah.
Europe also has racial discrimination, some countries more than others. But an interesting statement that I've heard is that we dislike or have prejudices against people from other countries rather than skin color, which I think the description also fits. So we also do have our problems. So here are some of my final thoughts. Well, if you're an American living in America, you probably don't really care about the intricacies of being European and living in Europe, and that's okay. We don't know everything about you, and I don't think you should know everything about us. We have our own stuff to deal with, but I do think we can learn from each other. For example, having free public bathrooms or universal healthcare. If you're planning on visiting European countries, I would suggest just looking up some stuff about what to do or what not to do, and some little language bits and pieces of saying please and thank you. Or just in general, be more aware of your surroundings. Not just for Americans, but for anyone out there in the world. So if you like this video and you like to see more of videos like this, consider buying me a little tea or coffee at Coffee. And I want to say thank you to anybody that did already donate. So, thank you. Thank you so much for watching.
I love her.
Happy Christmas, Merry Crisis, and all of the above. So, bye-bye.
So, bye-bye. Oh, she was actually great.
Yeah, she was great. So hit that subscribe button.
I hit it. She was very pleasant. I loved her delivery on most of the things.
Yeah.
She was, I don't want to offend anybody, but she was adorable.
Yeah.
I really liked the delivery, the TV, the background was like a slideshow of just, things she put together. The final thoughts about I think there's a lot of how do I say this? The way she explained Mexican food, this is Mexican. Mexico's over here and we're over here. Of course, I'm not going to have, Mexican food, good Mexican food. That's kind of how I feel like Americans think about Europe.
Yeah.
That summed it up to a T. Like, this is all the way the F over here. There's an ocean between us. Why? Because a lot of people won't ever leave America because it's so expensive to get on a flight and go to Europe. It costs $10,000. Like, it's thousands of dollars to make that trip work for most Americans, and it's just not worth it. They won't physically be able to do it because of the affordability problem there is. And I could say the same. Like, you guys it would probably be astronomical for you to come to America and visit. So it's just something that we don't do. And American states give us that kind of cultural difference. Because again, it is vastly different. You go to Texas and it is crazy. The difference compared to Florida. Like, Florida has a big Spanish and Cuban, culture and things like that. And so does Texas. And you think they'd be kind of similar. It's not. It's crazy. That's basically it. I think that summed it up for me. That was a good video.
Yeah, I agree. Did you feel like you learned some stuff?
I did. It gave me a different perspective. And, it's nice learning about all that because, again, I'm trying not to be. I'll be forever probably ignorant until we, physically get there, and it's something that we're striving to do is to get there, right? Because unless you experience it,
We're saving all the pennies in the piggy bank.
we are, and it's a lot. But I do, because I can even think in Europe, where you have certain countries that feel the same way about the other countries,
Yeah.
Yeah, it is very interesting. I did like this video a lot, you guys. It was very good.
I agree.
But all right, that's our time. Thank you so much for watching. Check out Hello Erica, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye.